you manage to trick yourself into veiling certain abilities, just the infinite capacity of who you are, by placing yourself under a thick fog, right, of a collective gravity. Now, this collective gravity doesn't belong to anyone. Can you find a person in this gravity, in this collective? It's all just a movement of energy. But under this spell, you've managed to hypnotize yourself in order to experience what it's like to be not so much powerless, but to have, some instances the lessons are a complete surrender into powerlessness, but really it's a way that you've managed to experience something outside of yourself that you are not under the control of. It's in the whole of the cosmos, the Earth has the most rules that you've brought into any planetary system. The rules of even gravity keeping you on the ground, not being able to bilocate, not being able to fly, manifestations taking months, weeks. This is really a creator's dream in terms of the level of difficulty. It's like a very intense playground for wisdom. It's a very intense place that you've allowed your consciousness to embed into in order to really master the levels of wisdom, master the losing yourself to the darkness, really in a completely controlled manner. No matter how much you believe that you haven't had control over this, that's because you're looking at an aspect of yourself which has veiled itself, where the oversoul can see everything. And when the oversoul can see everything, there's a controlled decision to veil a certain amount, to buy into a collective gravity. But this video isn't me just talking about the context as I do every time. We all know the context of what we've done in order to experience separation as the one being, to experience a multitude of others in order to know what it's like to feel at a denser level. This is just light condensed down into deeper and deeper and denser levels of separation, hypnotized to feel like there's something outside yourself. Great. I've just described the playground, but that doesn't really provide much else. This is just a context. But here, I want to speak about the collective gravity, because it really feels as though there's a blanket on top of yourself. All of these rules that you've brought into, the laws of physics, right? The laws of physics aren't laws. They're opinions that everyone really believes in, and so they feel very real. Not being able to teleport, I once said the other day, about flying, right? And someone had a really hot reaction to it, like, you can't do that. But that's because it's touching the part of them that knows that they've bought into a limitation in order to experience lessons. If you could just fly places, you'd be over there with your trauma. You'd be over there, you'd be distracted. And so this is why at a certain point we get to here, where now the abilities start to come back online. I'm not speaking about straight out the gate you're just going to be flying around. That would just cause havoc for you and others. I'm talking loosening the grip of gravity around physics. This is where magic starts to come. But this isn't about doing things from the ego. This is about just for the reason of remembering that you're an infinite, indestructible being that doesn't need these rules at a certain point. Once you feel you've matured in lessons, you'll start to see that you can pierce through the collective blanket. I call it dropping pins. So sometimes I'll be so in a dense city or something, and out of nowhere I just start in my consciousness have all of these thoughts, all of these feelings which I know are definitely not mine, but because you're in that environment you start to see you're back in the collective. But sometimes you'll find yourself piercing through the collective blanket, and you'll find yourself almost as if you're out and you're breathing above the water. And you have these memories come back, you have all of these things come back in perfect timing. Now, the ones that are piercing through, I have to admit, I got to a point where it was getting a bit head in the cosmos, and I didn't bring the body with me. It was almost as if this stretch was too much. And so now there's a mastery of grounding in and letting these energies come in, coming up to breathe, remembering your ability to be anything, your consciousness of other lifetimes, whatever. And I don't want to create this kind of oh, why aren't I seeing my other lives, this and this. Here it's just slight memories, slight familiarities with certain themes, but they become such distractions. So you're here at perfect timing, everything's coming to you in this way, to be able to pierce through these limitations, this collective blanket, and to be able to now just start letting go of these laws, letting go of these rules that you've bought into. They're just opinions, especially the laws of physics, the laws of what it means for abundance. You know, there's so much what's the word, lacking of self-worth. No one allows things to come to them. You're starting to allow energy to serve you. Let it come here. It's trying to serve you so badly, this energy. Anything you think manifests, but with all these layers of density, all these layers of limitation, you're keeping it from you. Everything's trying to find you that is, and it is finding you in perfect timing when you're ready for it, but you're pushing it away. This is what we're starting to see. If there's nothing you actually have to overcome, nothing you have to learn anymore, nothing you have to really go towards and strive for, you've just got to stop pushing it from coming back to you. And this goes for the collective piercing through, because who you are naturally rises up, right, and pierces through the blanket, pierces through the clouds. I remember I was flying back from Brazil, and I remember when you're up that high, you almost have no energetic pollution apart from people around you on the plane, but they're also up in this place as well. There's very little energetic overlays from thoughts, emotions, collective, and you start to always have these massive breakthroughs on planes because you're up there away from the kind of magnets. I call them gravitational magnets. So now you've got to see in yourself the intention. Do you want to still play the collective game and get really good and have a better human life within the collective? Or are you ready to basically go and evolve beyond this gravitational, hypnotizing fog? Because this fog was actually placed here. We don't want to get into conspiracy theories because everything's working for the greatest good. Even the darkness, even the dark forces, call them aliens, call them whatever, is actually allowing you to really lose yourself in order to learn lessons that you would never have been able to learn without them. So first of all, let's stop blaming the aliens. They're really helping us learn who we truly are. And they are aspects of yourself anyway. So when you're coming to this point, there's a fork in the road. Do you want to have a better human life within the collective, get lots of money in this kind of sense, get really good at this, get really that, in a linear way, right? Or do you want to start rising with the abundance, allowing abundance to come in to serve you, but not in a linear fashion, in order to unhook you from linearity, and you start rising into non-linearity, free time, where things get very weird in a quantum way, but it's only weird to the mind that thinks in terms of control, linearity, progression, timelines, me, other. Okay, things get very blurred when you start going quantum, and you've got to allow and actually have a willingness to go beyond. Because when you choose to go beyond everything that doesn't want you to go beyond, which is all inside you, by the way, all these hooks inside of yourself that are taking you down, really are your decisions. You're not affected by anything unless you buy into it. So the intention is there to say, I am willing and ready to go beyond the collective mind, because humanity is just a one mind. It's just one belief system. And within that are billions and billions of beliefs around limitation. So as you start to go beyond the collective gravity, you see that ultimately there was a choice when you were mature enough spiritually to want to go beyond because you learnt the lessons, but then also to see that there are lessons to be learnt now through the contrast of being in this thick, one-dimensional almost. I mean, it's three-dimensional, even four-dimensional, but it's very much about bodies. It's very much about time. As soon as you get closer and closer to the planetary system, everything starts to close in and close in and close in, and suddenly the world is out there and there's timelines and you're getting towards something, and they call it enlightenment. But really it's a realization. We know this. It's not an event. As you start to let yourself rise up, what I've seen is I'll sometimes come all the way out of a collective and the body just won't be able to handle it because the energy starts to flood in. It starts to come in through the spine, because what you've come here to do is to be an embodied master. Anyone can just leave the collective gravity. What you do is you get a gun to your head and you shoot, and suddenly you're out the body and you can see everything very clearly, and then usually you'll incarnate back, unless it's your final life, in order to learn certain lessons within that limitation. But you have this amazing opportunity in this era, you could say, to go beyond while still having your roots in the embodied state of Earth, humanity. So to be able to bridge the gap, there's divinity up here now pouring through, trickling through into an embodied master that now has the heavens open. They call this heaven's cross, that crimson circle. Well, there's never been done before on this planet in this way, where we now have a portal between the dimensions up here and the physicality down here, where it's not that you're up here then down here. You've just expanded your consciousness to be aware of up here, to be aware of down here, and then not to see a boundary between the two. And so things get very, you could say, weird, but really we're about reducing the weirdness, reducing the fear, starting to get very used to being able to use your consciousness in a transhuman way. So there's two movements going on right now. The transhuman way with AI, which is about chips in the brain, this and this. It's basically making the human linearity better. Or there's another transhuman movement, which is actually shedding the biology and stepping into the light body, stepping into being able to do the same potentials as using artificial intelligence, using machinery really added onto biology. But in this way, this is about shedding limitations surrounding the body itself in an organic way, using consciousness. And so you'll find yourself in this way that you can keep the aspects of humanity, but the biology is so complex, you don't need it. You start to shed it, and things become so much easier in terms of it's all about consciousness and energy, and being able to transport yourself in certain places, being able to be as big as you want, as small as you want. Instant manifestations, we call this precipitation, instant precipitation, golden coins, whatever. But you start to see, I mean, what is lack when you have instant precipitation? You start to see there's usually a fear around this, greed around this, but when you realize that there's no limit, then you, and all of these ways of ego really lose their grip, because there's no fear, because you are the creator in an embodied form. So what I'm really interested in at the moment is those that are also willing to pierce through and kind of break away from the collective gravity in order to then also have the maturity to ground this energy back in, not just to go off in a manic state, because I'll hold my hands up. I've always been just go for it, but I'm in this incarnation, I'm really learning how to ground these energies back in, really into the lower, you could say energy centers, but at this point you can just drop energy centers. I just see it as this level of consciousness expanding up, learning the lessons of what it's like to still have the body but be in a completely different consciousness space, completely outside of the collective. And so at the moment, certain tendencies do start to come up for people that are ready, maybe wanting to live in less dense places, maybe valuing time away from family, especially because the ancestry there is something that pulls you into linearity, pulls you back into biology, is you allowing, because you're only buying into it, no one's stopping you from just energetically cutting cords with certain conditions, because unconditional love doesn't see your mother as any different to another woman on the street. Of course, on the human level, there's certain stories, but as you start to see that actually there's a prison to family, there's a prison to certain friend contracts, things like this, and you can start to not say anything, just energetically unhook yourself from having any kind of conditions based on you, because these rules and these laws are really not yours, and they feel bad eventually. Where family once was a real comfort place for you, it can still be there as an aspect, but ultimately family becomes another blanket. You know, it's conditional sometimes. I mean, there's also a lot of unconditional love, but you'll also start to find energetically your family and friends pick up on this independency, this self-sovereignty, because you can't get through the gates with still holding, you know, onto this person, onto that person like this. You've got to want to go beyond in order to bring down this divinity into the body in order to experience this level of embodied mastery. It's not mastery to go off and just explode into the cosmos. I've tried that, and it creates this top heaviness. You've got to want to breathe it in, let it come in. I've had days of weeks of not just pure energy, just rising up and up and up and up, and then a massive crash, like a huge crash, just depression, this, and I'd breathe it out. I'd go to the spa, I'd go for a sauna. I'd just be concentrating on the body. I'd be like, okay, let's just let the energies flow, let these come in, because it's like a circuit break that just gets broken. This electricity that goes through your body, it's like if it goes through too quickly and too much with the circuit can handle, it's not really going to be embodied as wisdom into your being. It's going to be like some kind of like doing cocaine and doing all these drugs and then coming down into a crash. You've got to just breathe into it, let it happen, and then let the energies come in. So the main thing I wanted to speak about today was this piercing through the gravitational pull that you've bought into out of your own decision, having the intention, right? Do you want a better life within the prison, or do you want to see that the prison isn't there? And this is the final point I want to make today, is this collective gravity can also be likened to, let's say you're swimming upright, you're always looking for the air, and one day you get out the water and you can get your head above. But really there is no water, there is none. This is all an illusion. So really you can still feel like you're going up and up and up and out of these pools of, scarcity mindset. What else can you call it? It's just basically any limitation. You've got to work hard, you've got to grovel, right? This is all came from when certain things were implanted in the see, I don't want to get into conspiracy theories, but the reason is because of just certain tinkerings from external beings that came to this planet in order to morph the race into something that suited them. But this allowed us to experience things that we wouldn't be able to experience, the level of mastery. So put that aside, no need to blame. You actually chose to incarnate in this kind of experience anyway. And basically we're going from slavery to self-sovereignty. I mean, even if you think you're not a slave, if you're believing that you have to work hard at something you're not passionate about in order to pay the bills, in order to see another day, that is slavery. It's spiritual slavery. It's just another level. Okay, so this is the level that people don't even realize they're enslaved a lot of the time. A lot of people are waking up to this matrix, but it comes into a lot of blame and a lot of projection. But as you start to see that ultimately this matrix is just a prison of really light. If you put your hand through the prison wall, there's nothing there, because most people are starting to wake up to the fact that the only way that you can keep a prison matrix seemingly there is to make those that are within that prison not have the courage or the willingness or even want to go and check the walls. Because as you start to check, there's nothing, you start to put your hand through and it's just an open boundless field with this hologram of like prison bars. It's all an illusion. So really, if you've ever heard of the Stockholm syndrome, this is what this density is. People falling in love with being held captive. It's actually a deep juice the ego likes to have rules. I've always really, if anyone's like really sticks to the laws, it's like you're loving being controlled. There's something in you that feels safe, and that's fair enough. That's what you've chosen, but your laws are not my laws. You can have your rules of physics, of abundance, what it means to have to grovel and work hard in order to make money, whatever. I mean, everything comes to you when you allow it to serve you, when you actually allow it to find you. Everything's trying to seek you out. And if you keep believing in these mindsets of scarcity and work ethic and whatever this bullshit is, you're going to experience that. But don't rope me into that. I won't even be there to believe you, because you can't see me. You get to a certain level where it's so good, you just are only around that which you attract, and it's great. So you've got to have the intention to want to leave, but also the maturity to embody that into this human vessel. And that is what's activating DNA. That's what's changing DNA. That's what's allowing you to really go beyond. In order to go beyond, you've got to first want it. You've got to want it more than you are to be held captive in this illusory prison. If you want something more, this is the whole thing about desire. Desire gets such a bad rap. like in the spiritual community, all desires are bad, because I think Buddha once said something very mistranslated around this. But what's truly meant is that desires coming from limitation within this form of separation, sure, but you are just an empty empty consciousness with desire. So you're always desiring something, always creating some kind of reality. That's who you are. You're creating. So you're either creating a prison, or you're creating the decision to go beyond the prison walls. So you just got to choose what you want, because you're always going to be manifesting something. That's who you are. You're empty creation. So start to just, and sometimes there's a momentum to it. So you put all these bricks around you. So then you start undoing the bricks, and you just get into that flow of slowly unhooking from the gravity. Slowly stop putting up the bricks to start with, and allowing them to come down, Eventually you find yourself with nothing keeping you in, no illusory gates, nothing, and you start running free again. But you have been in that way for some time without the lessons of wisdom of this planetary system. The earth is crazy for the level of laws, the level of lessons, limitations, how it is to choose. It's really a place and a realm of choice, a very good place to come to learn what you are really choosing. Because in realms where you've got infinite capacities and abilities, and you know yourself as the creator, this is the only place where you really feel disconnected from source. And if an outside view is looking at Earth and they're just speaking to their friend like, what's going on down there? Why are they all acting so fucking insane? It's because they think that they're disconnected from source, and they've managed to get to a level of density that believes that, and their friends will be like, no, surely not, that can't be done. Everyone knows they're the creator. No, they've managed to do it through a thick fog of a veil. So now you're just about remembering coming out of that veil, and things are getting a lot more clear, and there's a lot more clarity of what you've bought into, what you've always agreed to. And so then even the blame starts to drop, and you think, oh, I really did go for this game, right, of separation of this thing, and I'm now so much more wise from it. You know, think of yourself even 5 years ago. How much wiser are you in the last 5 years? Do you see how insane the level of gradient is? You know, a few centuries ago, you wouldn't be learning this wisdom in a whole lifetime, thousands of lifetimes. Just look at your camera roll of you 5 years ago. Look at anything of you 15, 20 when you were born. You are infinitely more wise now, which means you can know what it's like to get trapped, and also to release yourself from that. Imagine you get to take that with you to all these other realms, all these other planetary systems, this level of mastery. You know, to become an ascended master, to go to the Ascended Masters Club, whatever. So now you come to this place. So yeah, stick with it. The one thing I want you to know is the intention. Even just check in with your intention. Do you want to be released from these games, this collective, this scarcity mindset, this limitation mindset, this lacking of self-worth? Firstly, check in, do you even want it? Because if you don't, there might be some lessons you still want to learn within duality, within this level of density. But then start to see, well, am I willing to go? Am I willing to really go for it? You know, you start to really run, but it's not you're running from anything, you're actually really running back to yourself. That's the really beautiful thing. Who you are, the larger version of you, which is just an aspect, really the more you, is waiting with open arms. This is what's beautiful. You start to really make a run for it. Alright, I love you.